programme and the implications of it. And I want to bring in our audience, which includes those who have been in work and are not in work now, those who are unemployed and those who have been on schemes. Let me ask, first of all, those of you, any of you here who are now in the age group, or roughly in the age group, who are unemployed, and your thoughts about what Mr. Smith said. Yes, Guy right in the middle end, second row.
Well, basically, I'm 24 now. I'm 25 next year, and from what Mr. Dimbleby said, I'm not going to have hope in hell. What's going to happen for people, for example, like myself, who've got a criminal record, a very long criminal record? People might not want to take me on because I've got a very, very long criminal record dating back 14 years.
If you want to take part in the New Deal, then there is special advice and support available during this gateway period for those who've had trouble with the law in the past. And we do recognise, as I said earlier, that because of those who've got special needs, that they should have early entry into the New Deal, not have to wait the 6 months unemployment before they enter the programme.
When do you become 25?
I'm 25 next year, so just after it changes.
Now, will he, for instance, be able, because there must be many people in this in a similar-ish predicament, will he be able to come straight in to the Gateway programme?
Yes, on what he said, he will be able to.
Anyone else? Yes, the woman wearing the green shirt.
Yes, following on from that, I've taught at a young offenders institution. One of my students is at university now. Will he get special help when he gets out of university to get paid employment?
What age is he?
He's now 19.
He's 19.
Second year.
Yes, he will be eligible for the New Deal. He would be eligible to enter the Gateway straight away without having to wait in 6 months of unemployment. And what's more, we're discussing with the Home Office and with the prison service ways in which young people prior to their release from an institution can get help with training linking into the Gateway even before they leave. So I think this is good news in terms of the continuity of support which we need to have available so that people aren't just left on their own to their own devices when they immediately can't, because it's all too easy, as we know, especially those who've had particular problems, to get drawn back into that same pattern of activity, criminal behaviour or drug abuse or whatever, that led to the problem in the first place. And we want to break that vicious cycle in their lives.
People who the guy at the back row there, yeah.
What happens if, like, okay, you might just be able to get a job, but the last one was like 2 weeks, the one before that was maybe a month or so. You can't hold on to it, especially if you're just about to hit 25. You might think, hey, I don't want to get a job because I want to get on your course, and if I get the job, no course, and then I'll be back next week after 25, and I've had it. If you sort of get my meaning.
Yeah, it's very clear. It's very clear. You aren't eligible because you wouldn't have had that 6 months of being unemployed.
Yeah, because I was told technically if you might be unemployed for six months, but if you've only had like so many weeks, you're technically still classed as unemployed.
That's a genuine predicament. If you're under the 24-year barrier and you're in and out of work, so that you've got no steady job, you have great difficulty making use of the scheme.
Anyone who's worked for up to 28 days during that period, that wouldn't be counted wouldn't be counted as a break in their unemployment, so they still would be eligible. There are still going to be some tough cases that fall sort of just outside the 28 days. There always are when you have to draw these rules, but what we've tried to do is to make the programme as flexible as possible so as not to discourage, of course, people from taking work, but to give them an easy route into the New Deal and the advantages which it offers. And the important thing for young people who are going into work from the New Deal after this gateway period is that we won't simply be taking, short-term, any old job, an employer that dispenses with someone for no good reason after a few weeks. I mean, they won't be taking part in the scheme anymore. We want quality opportunities.
Will they like see what he's doing wrong as well? Say like, oh, here's what I've done wrong. That's why I haven't been able to hold on. Will your scheme be able to solve those problems?
Yes, it will. This is the point of this counselling and advice and the personal advisor during this gateway period, is really to get to the bottom of what the particular difficulties are that the young person faces, and indeed their achievements and potential, what there is there to build on, and to draw up a personal action plan that actually suits them and their needs pointing the way forward to employment. So we evaluate their training needs, the sorts of work that they're interested in, and then of course we're matching that against the very large numbers of employers who are saying, yes, we're interested in the New Deal and keen to give young people a chance.
Down here in the corner.
I want to know, Minister, how you're going to guarantee that these options that you're offering in employment are quality options. Because if they're not quality options, when that young person goes out and looks for a job, the employer won't take any notice. And surely the scheme will become just another sink scheme like the YTS scheme has come before.
Yes. The quality is going to be closely monitored, not least, of course, by those people who are taking part in it, who will want to tell their personal advisor if things aren't working out right. As I said earlier, employers have signed up to employ people under normal terms and conditions, to be offering the equivalent of the 1 day a week training. There will be the £750 training grant available, and the young person's progress will be being assessed against a personal action plan which they have drawn up in conjunction with their personal advisor. And employers who offer substandard opportunities will be thrown off the programme. But let me say...
Lots of people, you say will be thrown off the programme, substandard opportunities. A lot of people will say, we've heard these kind of commitments before. That's what's in your mind. Yeah. We've heard it's going to be quality jobs. We're going to be very tough on people who don't deliver quality jobs. And a lot of the jobs have been rubbish. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's been mentioned that Tesco's and Sainsbury's have been great, have been supporting the government and saying they're going to offer jobs. Surely young people won't be inspired, their qualities really won't come out if they're just going to be stacking shelves in Tesco's. That's not what employers are looking for, and that's not what young people are looking for.
But there are very good job opportunities also, with not just with Tesco, Sainsbury's, Marks and Spencer. I visited Marks and Spencer's in Sheffield the other day, where I was talking to a number of existing trainees, some of whom came in through the shop floor and were progressing through management. And that store and the manager in that store gave a commitment that he was going to take on New Deal trainees. Now that can get real access into quality career opportunities. Ditto all the other firms that are taking part, from British Aerospace, Rover, Ford's, Uniparts, Allied Domecq, Lloyd's TSB. There is a growing number of national companies and smaller companies locally who are saying, yes, we want to take part in this. And the key to this is matching the particular needs and potential of the young person to the range of job opportunities and training openings which the employers have to offer.
Any doubts, further doubts about this programme? Stick for a moment with the 18 to 24-year-old programme. Guy there, second in and the fourth row back in the centre.
Who's going to exercise you talked a lot about these advisors. Who is going to exercise the quality control over these advisors? Because if it's going to be the employment service, they don't have a very good record on this, quite honestly. They send people to all kinds of cowboy people who are, quite frankly, ripping off the taxpayers. I talked to somebody about this yesterday who lives in Cornwall, and the stories, he's an honest man, I know him very well, and the stories he told me about it's fraud what's going on down there, of employers literally taking money from the taxpayer and giving the most appalling training. But of course I've also come across ones who are just brilliant. I know a woman in Devon who's built a training business through being brilliant at getting people into work.
It is a widespread fear and comment, and I would be amazed if you as a minister had not heard it, that the capacity or readiness of the employment service to monitor closely enough is not good enough, and that if you're really going to deliver what you promise, you'd actually have to give them a heck of a lot of training. Otherwise, you'll end up with a lot of very disillusioned young people.
They are getting a heck of a lot of training, and I just stress this as well. The Employment Service had one job to do under the last government, the last 18 years. They've got a very different job to do with this government. There is a process of culture change and attitude change underway within the Employment Service. As I go around the country addressing meetings with the Employment Service there, and I talk to Employment Service staff in job centres, of course, as well, they tell me that this is the chance to do the job they really joined the Employment Service to do, which is to make a real contribution to helping people into work and not just processing them as faceless statistics.
Now, I can carry on with these more points on this, but if those who have a view about the long-term unemployed and the extent to which I was suggesting they weren't getting as decent a deal want to come in one way or the other on that, you're now welcome to do so. The man's third in the third row back.
Yeah, it seems for the long-term adult unemployed, the focus is simply on the subsidised job option. From the sort of discussions that I've had with employers, I work with employers placing people into jobs, what they're talking about is not that the subsidy makes the difference, it's the level of employability that the candidate comes with. So unless there's a sort of a gateway that's providing a similar sort of service for long-term adult unemployed people, then it's less likely that will work.
Before coming back to this, can I just ask you this? The presumption has been of this administration that it's more important, or at least if you tackle the problem at the youth end, you are less likely to get people into the predicament of long-term unemployment, which is why the money's gone, the emphasis of the money's gone there in the prioritising. Do you accept that priority as well or not?
I don't think, actually, it's an either-or in that way, is the short answer.
Okay, so the general point that he's making.
Yeah. As I say, we've got the programme for the long-term unemployed coming along starting from June of next year. It's not just the subsidised employment, there's also the opportunity of a year's education and training. We haven't announced all the details yet of the long-term unemployed New Deal, and I believe there will be very important lessons to be learnt from the way we start the New Deal for the young unemployed that could have benefits in terms of the way in which we approach longer-term unemployed. And we're examining, for example, some of the existing help which is available, like job finder interviews, restart, training for work and so on, and seeing how this can be better organised in order to provide precisely the support that you've asked for, enhancing people's employability before they go to that job interview.
Woman here in the third row back.
Yeah, Minister, I'm one of the long-term unemployed. I've done all your government training courses. In fact, the last particular one I did focused on a wide group of people who want some kind of training in the media or the arts. What are you going to do to satisfy those people who are trained musicians or whatever so that they can get the work experience which might lead to a job, because you've not talked about the arts whatsoever? And it's a catch-22 situation of no work experience, no job.
Have you, you're interested in, you're a musician, are you?
Yeah, but I'd like to try kinds of training in the media or...
You would like media training of some kind?
Yeah. Well,
long-term
to take that as an example, within the year's availability of education and training that will be opened up in our New Deal for the long-term unemployed, I would want work experience to be part of that. And I agree with you, there's an enormous contribution to jobs for the future and to the success of this country, which the arts and the cultural industries can provide. And so the long-term New Deal should provide precisely the sort of opportunity that you're looking for. And remember that the training schemes that you've been talking about are all ones that were set up under the previous government, not under this new high-quality approach which the Labour government has.
But we have to wait till June till that happens.
We can't do everything at once, and our key pledge before the general election, we said we would start by bringing in the programme for the young unemployed. But as I say, there's a programme for the long-term unemployed as part of the New Deal. We've also, of course, got initiatives to help lone parents into work and those who've been excluded from work by reason of long-term sickness or disability.
You've had your hand patiently up for some time in the second row there.
What option will there be for people like dancers who, because of the competitive field of their work, spend a lot of time unemployed but need to spend their time training if they have any hope of fulfilling their ambition? What option will there be for them who need financial support but need to spend their time training, not going into other jobs?
Let me just generalise on that, because there are a great many skills of that kind, whether it is in the arts or elsewhere, whether it's in medicine, whether it is in teaching, whether it is in computer studies, where you have to keep on training even if you're to have any chance of keeping up and getting the job at some stage.
Yes, indeed. And for those in the arts who satisfy the basic terms of eligibility for the programme, and you do have to have some rules about this, and the New Deal isn't claiming to be the answer to all of the nation's training needs. It is a programme that was concentrated on getting young and long-term unemployed people.
But hang on, it's more important than you're suggesting, because she is saying, that's absolutely clear, what she is saying is that she will be penalised, in effect, if she doesn't go on to something which doesn't deliver what she wants to do in order to get the work which she believes she's capable of doing.
Well, they still receive financial support if they want to carry on dancing and training, but that doesn't fulfil any one of the four options you suggested, so do they still receive benefits?
Oh no, I'd want the options within the New Deal. If you've entered the gateway and are looking to the options that the New Deal has to offer, I would want the opportunities to be available precisely for you to do the sort of activity you want, and for that to be matched with training. That does depend, of course, on us attracting the widest possible range of employers to commit to the programme. Now, the news so far is very encouraging. There's a very large number of employers, big and small, who are saying, we want to take part in this, but there's going to be intensive marketing activity at the local level as well as at the national level to get still more on board. You see, I think the message of the New Deal is that we are all in this together. The government can't do all of it. We have to work in partnership with business, with the community, with local councils, with techs, with trade unions, and with employers themselves, as well as taking account of the views of unemployed people. And we've had meetings like this in designing the New Deal, trying as far as possible to make it flexible and responsive to the particular needs of the unemployed.
Let me then bring in, if any of you would like to, the area that we touched on in the interview, which is those who have already fallen through the net, and whether there's enough being done to make sure that they can get into the New Deal. The woman seconded in the third row back.
You're going to fast-track people who've got particular difficulties onto the New Deal and get them into the gateway, but are they not still going to be subject to only 4 months in the gateway being helped? Lots of people have got severe difficulties, and it'll take longer than 4 months to solve these. If they're going to get pushed out into one of these options straight away, they're not going to have their needs met.
Do you work in this field yourself?
Yes, in guidance.
This gateway period, just in case people have forgotten, this gateway is when you've reached eligibility, you have 4 months in which you counsel, help, try to draw out the skills of people, hope they can find jobs. If they can't, they then go into one or other of the schemes. Minister.
I think there's two answers to that. One is, of course, to make sure that the subsequent option, the subsequent 6 months, links in well to the work that's already been done with that young person during the first 4 months, so it becomes a 10-month experience. Taking account of precisely the point you've made, though, we are also introducing the opportunity for people after the 4 months to have up to 3 months intensive basic skills or whatever other remedial help that they need before going into the employer option. So that would be 4 months plus 3 months plus 6 months. As I said, we can't extend it indefinitely, but we are trying to be flexible in response to the needs of the young people concerned and in response to the consultation, including comments like yours that we've received over the summer.
The woman in the back there wearing the blue sweater.
I'm concerned that one thing you haven't mentioned whilst discussing these more disadvantaged unemployed is the fact that more resources will need to be put into different but related areas. I'm thinking particularly of the homeless, because that's been the field in which I've worked for a number of years. There are a lot of people who are homeless who would like to get back to work, but until you start putting more money into housing, into social and medical related areas, you're not going to get those very vulnerable and very needy people back into the system and into work and being made to feel that they have a contribution to make.
Minister?
Yes. You're right, and that's why we've been working closely at a national level and indeed at local level with bodies like Foyers, like the YMCA, like Shelter, who are particularly addressing and got a track record of working with homeless people. And of course the government is providing more resources for housing, not least by the phased release of the accumulated capital receipts.
But you're not picking up the people who are sleeping on the streets. That is my concern.
Okay, you've made your idea. The man on the end, on the third row back here.
Yes, having worked with government programmes for a number of years now, I'm very concerned that the government have very high targets for New Deal, which is a laudable aim. It's very good to have high expectations, but we're talking now about a number of people who have very particular needs, and the government needs to make New Deal work. What is it going to do to make sure that the young people with the very severe needs get a good deal and aren't pushed aside, so that the ones who are going to be easier to place in employment are going to get those places first?
Because those who are providing services in the gateway or indeed on the voluntary sector or the environmental task force option, in making their bid as to what they can provide for how much money, we've given explicit guidance that they can take account of the degree of difficulty of the people that they will be working with. So the answer is they will get more money in relation to the needs of those that they're trying to help forward. And I think that's a very important step forward and a big difference from the sorts of schemes that have gone in the past.
In a phrase only, I'm afraid, Minister, are you content to be judged on this by the end of this Parliament?
Yes, of course. We made a promise for the Parliament. We promised we'd get 250,000 young people off benefit and into jobs. It will be a promise kept.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you to our audience here. That's all for this week. I'm afraid that's all for us for 1997. We'll be back, though, in the new year for the start of our 1998 season. Join us then. For now, good afternoon.
Well, what counts, of course, is turning words into action. And what the New Deal does is carry into effect our promise before the election to bring new hope and new opportunity to the young unemployed.